So it's a big week. You've got the World Champs coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always excited about these international competitions. The level is going to be so high. And there's always a couple of things I make sure I do the week before these competitions, and let's discuss it in this episode. Welcome to this week's podcast. We're going to do a video format, which will sit on YouTube, and then we'll also put this out on our Padel School podcast. And today, what we're going to do is discuss, that kind of our feedback or our experience from Sweden, and now looking ahead to the World Championships qualifying this week. And as always, we'll answer a few questions from our community at the end there. So, firstly, we've come back from Sweden, great trip, lovely seeing World Padel Tour, the Expo, seeing the level of Swedish paddle. And then, now this week, I'm going to see the Swedish national teams competing at the World Championships, in the qualifying here in the UK. So, and that is a really seriously high level now that the Swedes are competing at, but not just the Swedes, all of the countries.
Yeah, there's a real buzz around this World Champs qualifying, isn't there? I think a lot of countries. Well, what do you think? You've played in the last few competitions. How do you feel like the different countries have developed over the years?
Yeah, I think now this is probably my 9th year or 10th year that I've played either European Championships or World Championships, and it's really interesting because the countries that are developing, and now if we think of Finland, Denmark, Belgium, Holland, they started and they came on the scene, a few years ago, and it was mainly really good tennis players that were playing tennis on a paddle court, but because of their physicality and their reactions, they still played quite well. But nowadays, the level of paddle within those games, they're playing like proper paddle now, from that tennis background, still fast and aggressive. And I mean, it's great to see. Every time I play one of these competitions, I always come away pretty impressed with the level from these countries where paddle is relatively new.
Yeah, because you see a lot of tennis players converting, don't you, in a lot of these countries? Do you feel like we're starting to see, as paddle was growing there, that these ex-professional tennis players, a lot of them, right, from these countries?
Yeah, and I think if we look at the UK now, there's a slight difficulty in that we've got some really good tennis players in this country, and well, you've played a lot in the UK, right? And we play, they play these tournaments, and when everyone is playing like a tennis player, it's quite difficult to break that mold. And if you look a few years ago to Sweden, before the top players, you had Danny Windler, Simon Vasquez and Kalle and all those guys, that before they went to Spain, it was the same really. Everyone was playing really fast tennis, but with a few of the players going to train in Spain and getting a few coaches over and kind of integrating a bit more paddle at the top end, it ends up filtering down. And I think that's really important, because if you play like a good tennis player, like with any of the training, you can get to a certain level, but you come up against good paddle players and it just won't be enough. And the sooner our good tennis players, when I say are, like around the world, not just UK, the sooner good tennis players can realise that and get more paddle into the game, the level will just take off.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when we work with a lot of beginner players, we talk about playing tennis on a paddle court, but it's interesting how even at the highest levels where you're competing, that's still happening a little bit. So you'd assume that the level of World Champs qualifying, that everyone would be playing proper paddle, but it's interesting how it's still a transformation for a lot of players.
And you've got to think the players that will be there from these countries have really only taken it up in the last few years, and it takes time, you're fighting, you came from a really strong tennis background. I mean, you would have destroyed me in tennis. And now, in paddle, the way was just me slowing it down, wasn't it? And it's super frustrating, but it's the way, we've all got to learn. And at that top level, for all of these countries, you look at, like I mentioned, the teams, the Danes, the Sweden, Holland, they're all getting paddle in their game now. And for a lot of them, it's same as myself still, trying to fight tennis instincts and, prolong rallies and create more of a paddle structure to your game. It takes time. It's not going to be overnight.
Yeah, and I think speaking to a lot of tennis players that have started paddle, especially high-level tennis players, you almost have to accept the learning process, don't you? A lot of very, very good tennis players, they don't really want to accept that they might get onto a paddle court and have to almost start, with the fundamentals again, because they're so used to playing at a certain level. Their expectation is to come in at paddle at that level, but it takes time, doesn't it? It can be a bit of a painful learning curve.
And so many tennis players, good tennis players, look at paddle and think, oh, it's very similar to tennis, I'll be good at it. And you could take the top tennis players in the world and they wouldn't even get close to the pre-qualifying level of the World Padel Tour. It's a different sport. You'd never take a tennis player onto a squash court and think, oh, they're immediately going to be a good squash player, so why would you do that with paddle? And it does take time. Some of the best advice I was given, when I was learning at the beginning was like, almost allow paddle to kind of soak in a little bit for a few years. It's not something you can rush. Like, you need time on court, you need time against good players, you need time working on your game, and you also need like processing time, and that's one of those things where, and this is also why if you're a slightly older player, you can actually still keep improving your game, because it's kind of experience out there, knowing how to play at certain speeds and where to play, and it all just takes time. So patience is key. Yeah,
and a lot of the learning process involves a lot of mistakes and errors and to improve, right?
Definitely. So I mean, the same in any sport, right? I mean, if you think back to you playing on the circuit in tennis, it was the same there, really. Like, there are small errors every week that you're essentially refining your skill set, aren't you? And again, it takes time.
Yeah, you have to be comfortable with making errors and making mistakes, and having the bigger picture, in your mind of this is all about improvement.
And we're talking now at a top level, but it's exactly the same when you're learning. And how many times have we had lessons with paddle players that say, well, I'm really successful hitting a big aggressive smash, and you say, yes, you are right now, but wait until you go up a level. The same with the serve. So many people say, but if I serve from near the side glass and I put loads of side spin and it's working. But yes, I mean, it is working now, but wait till you play a little bit of a stronger player and it won't be working. So it's and like we're always saying, both in-person sessions and online, is you almost want to develop your game for your future future self, for your future paddle, as opposed to right now what you're doing.
No, it's a good point. So the World Champs later this week. First match on Friday.
We've got the opening ceremony on Thursday when they do the draw, and it's going to be a big one this year because Sweden and Portugal didn't play, so this is the qualifying, right? So that the top teams from before would stayed in, they qualify automatically. But this year, Portugal and Sweden didn't play the previous one, so both of those teams are in qualifiers when really they should probably already have been in the top selection. So Sweden seeded, but Portugal is the floating dark horse, and whoever gets them in their group is having a bit of a tough draw. But
so when those groups get decided, I think everyone's going to be looking for Portugal.
It's either a sigh of relief or it's like, oh no, what have we got? And the way they're doing it this time, they're doing 6 groups of 3 countries per group. And you've really got to win your group to keep going and to go that next step. And so it's really, really important that the team starts strong. The first match, like you say, Friday, that first match we have to all be playing well, and this is something that the UK team, the Great Britain team, is not struggled with in the past. Our main difficulty is that our players are spread in different places, across Spain, some in the UK, 1 or 2 in Dubai. It's difficult for us to play as a unit, and so when we play the World Championships and it's a week-long event, usually by the 3rd or 4th day we're starting to gel. But here we can't afford that. Like it needs to be from the first match.
It's difficult, isn't it? In the UK, it's the courts aren't there yet, and the clubs aren't there. So it's difficult, isn't it, for everyone to get together and play? Yeah,
it's understandable that players are in Spain to train. I completely understand that, and even now we're with the LTA, but we don't quite have the resources allocated yet to bring the whole team together for training camps during the year. And we UK is not quite at that point where we've got a really broad base of players to choose from, and so we can do big training camps here. So it is what it is, and we're doing our best. And this week we've got 3 or 4 days training as a team before Friday. So even today I'll do our first training on Monday. So yeah, that's really, really important.
What role do you think you play in the team? I mean, how many years have you been playing now?
I've been playing in the team, I think 9 years, and I'm one of the older members of the team, and I've always known in the team for being like just a bit kind of OCD and organised. So they know, like, if they need a foam roller or some TheraBands or grips or whatever it might be, like, I'll have it in my bag. Like, I'm just and I think that's kind of the role that I do play in the team, is just making sure everyone is, like, helping them get organised and making sure, communication within a team. And I'm not just talking about a pair, but within the whole team is really important, and making sure that, everyone, is feeling good, everyone's feeling positive. And we don't right now have our pairs defined. So it's making sure that the pairs that, are playing together, they have breakfast together, they have lunch together, and they're gelling well off court. I mean, that's huge if we want them to gel well on court. Yeah,
every sport has that, don't they? When they either play for their country or they come together and they've been apart, is that communication, isn't it? So I feel like it's really understated, of gelling with the team and that communication, because you think, oh well, it's all about the on-court stuff, but all that other stuff is so important, isn't it?
And I'm just thinking back to our first team match in the Europeans previous year, and we played Finland, and it went down to the third match. It went down to the third set of the third match. It went to the tie-break in that third match, and we knew then at that stage in the first match of the tournament, whoever won that would qualify, and whoever lost would most likely go out. And we were there. I think we were there till like midnight or 1 a.m. like playing that last match, and the teamwork off court is so important. Like, the energy that you bring, supporting your team is as important as, the energy on the court. And so, it's really, really important that the team gets on well together and supports each other, and having your own team at the back glass supporting you as you're playing that is crucial. It really is. And so, now we're talking at this level, but it's the same again at your clubs, when you're playing club competitions, or even you and your partner, you have to have that support. There's nothing worse than playing with a partner that you feel, either puts pressure on you because they don't like, a shot you miss or whatever it might be, or, there's a bit of negativity, and removing that negativity is key. And I kind of feel like that's one of the roles I do play, definitely.
Because the team's training this week, so is it every day, I think, till Friday we're training?
Every day.
Anything specific? I mean, I remember from my tennis days, and even now with paddle, if I've got competition coming up, there's certain things I'll do. What is there anything you do specifically?
I mean, specifically for me, it's points. It's just it's lots of points, getting in the rhythm and the speed of points. It would be different if I was playing on the World Padel Tour and I was playing, every week in another competition, and I'm playing, hundreds and thousands of matches a year. I'm not. So, the build up to this is really point based, and making sure that, I have a really good warm up and I have a really good cool down, and the kind of nutrition and sleep and all of that has to go well this week. I'm not as young as I used to be, so it has to all of that has to come together as well. But yeah, this week it'll be a lot of points with the teams that we're wanting to work with, and again, starting that communication, having a good time with the team, training hard, making sure that everyone's included, everything like that.
So there's less drill based. So almost the work's been done now. It's more about just putting it into match play.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk a lot about competing and playing. We talk a lot about not worrying about technique. That's already done. That kind of homework is already done, and a little bit The same with the drills. There's not going to be so much drill. We want everyone to be really sharp, and the best way to do that is to play these points. There may be conditions in points to kind of keep us thinking and keep us working tactically, but it will be majority points.
Do you think obviously this is a big competition, and for everyone involved, they've been leading up to this, but when you're playing matches on the weekends, or perhaps you're playing matches every other week, do you think you would have the same approach, or do you think because this is such a big competition that you're very kind of specific around training, point play, but if you're playing matches quite regularly, would you mix it up?
I think if I was playing matches regularly, I would always have something to work on. There would always be one or two things that I'd be working on, and there might be a bit more drill element, but definitely points leading up to it. But I'll reverse that question to you. You competed almost every week of the year, right? Challenger tours. So what would you do?
I think for me, I always played points the day or two before the match. So if I had a week, say, let's say I played on the weekend and then I had a match the following weekend, I might train the first couple of days, depending on how I felt. A lot of it was how you feel as well, like how much energy you have. But I think just before the match day, I would definitely have points in there for me. But I know a lot of players, it's quite individual as well. I know a lot of players in padel and tennis that perhaps prefer just to do drilling, the days before the match. And
you look at even the approach of like Federer versus Nadal. Nadal would be out there on the training court with the highest intensity possible. Right before his match, he would play, a Grand Slam match and then get on the bike for, a couple of hours to cool down, and Federer would be really loose and relaxed, and and it's their style as well. You've got to, like you say, it's so personal.
Mentally, so we talked about training. Mentally, how do you feel going into the competition, and what is there anything you do to prepare mentally for a competition like this? I mean, it's a big competition.
I think for me, I've played hundreds of thousands of pressure matches, and for me, one thing that helped that so much was college. Like college tennis was, week in, week out pressure matches, and you're playing with your team around you, which I loved. Like it was probably my best moments in tennis was with the college team, and my best moments in padel are with the team. I love it, and so I think especially at the start of the week and with training, is not putting too much pressure on myself. Like I said, I'm not playing the World Padel Tour. I'm not going to be playing at the perfect match level. So allow myself a little bit of freedom to play, particularly at the beginning of the week, because I always find by day 3 or 4, I'm really getting in the groove with it. And when it comes to matches, and I'm sure you'll say the same for tennis, all you can do is leave it on the court. There's no point in putting pressure on yourself or dwelling on previous matches. You go out there, you give it everything you've got, and when you walk off the court, you're finished on the court. And it's the same mentality with points, and so many of our community always write in and say, well, how do we deal with the mental side of losing points? I get so frustrated. And it's the same. You've got to practice that kind of resetting, haven't you? There's no point in being angry if you've lost the point, because it's not going to change anything. And so it's that same mentality I feel going into games. Give it everything you've got, and if you win, great. If you lose, that's life, and you learn from it, and try and improve.
Short-term memory loss is important, isn't it?
Huge. Yeah. And it's really easy to say. We're here discussing it, saying it's really easy. And even for me, having played, so many competitive matches, it's not easy to do. It's so, especially in padel, I find, because you don't get the length of break between points. It's so easy to lose a point, get frustrated, and carry that into the next point, and before you know it, it ends up being a bit of a snowball, and it's so difficult to put the brakes on and be like, right, give yourself time, and gather your thoughts. And I've seen this so many times at all levels. Sets have been lost in the blink of an eye because of that, that kind of motion.
It genuinely is 1 point at a time, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's almost the hardest part, I think, of a lot of sport, but particularly padel and tennis is the same. That mentality of 1 point at a time, it's almost a bit of a motto that just gets thrown around, but it genuinely is that. that simple.
And you remember it from tennis, right? We used to, and when I was coaching, I remember we discussing it, being like, look, if we finish this point, go to the back, like pick up a ball, take your time, do your shoelaces if you need to, like gather your thoughts, to step back up to the line. I mean, in tennis, you've got all that space behind the court and you've got balls to collect everywhere. So it's a bit easier. In paddle, you're usually finish one point and you're a couple of meters away from where you need to be for the next one. So it's very easy to quickly walk there and play the next point. And I think it's a real skill to be able to just kind of reset, or like you said, short-term memory loss, and go, into that next point with the same, kind of vigor or same approach as the last.
It's interesting how when we talk about match play, I know you don't think of technique. Like technique is now it's more about the tactical, and you're in the match, so you're not really thinking about your technique at all, are you, in the matches? And I think a lot of players that we coach, particularly beginners, perhaps they've spent all week working on their technique, which is great, and they get into a match and they're still consciously thinking about their technique, and they're not really in the match. They're focusing on their swing or something around their technique, and almost the match sort of becomes a bit of a blur, and it's more about they're focusing on themselves. And I think that's an interesting point, because for me, going into a match, at that point, technique is now, you've done the technique, you've been on the training court and done that, and now you're in the match. You should be focusing on the tactical elements and how to win the points. And I think that's quite a difficult balance, particularly for beginners who are learning the game, who are always thinking about their technique, and then you get into the match court and it's easy to carry that training into the match court, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it depends on how important the competition is, and a complaint, not a complaint, but something that a lot of our community say is that they don't have time on a training court. They're only playing social matches. And so I'd say if it's a social match and you're playing 4 social matches a week, and you're saying, well, where I can't improve because I'm playing social matches, I would say use those as training. You can focus on technique in those social games. But if you have a competition that you really want to win, and in those games, it's your focus is improving a shot or an area of game or your level. Whereas if you go into a competition that you really want to win and you want to compete, then you have to, it's like sitting an exam. You've got to think you've put the hard work in now. You can't be studying, as it were, during your exam. And so I have that same approach, and definitely at a higher level, it's that is 100% the focus. And I think then it, like you say, it becomes an outward, like what is happening in the game, what are our opponents doing, what information can you gather, and you can look at technique for them. I think that's absolutely fine. You see that they may struggle with a specific shot, or you can tell by the way that they're taking their racket back, they're going to be slow defending on the backhand side, for example, or whatever it might be. But this looking outward is really important. And I think coming from high level tennis, we do that quite naturally. Like, when you're receiving a serve and the person is hitting that serve at, 115, 120 miles an hour, you need those visual cues. Yeah. You can't just wait and watch the ball and hope you're going to get there. You need to see the way they're turning with the body, and so it's quite natural for us, you and I, to watch a paddle player and say, I'm watching by the body shape and the racket arm and the open face and things like that. But that is a huge practice for recreational players, is, to start watching what their opponent's doing and get, telltale signs of what's coming next, and it starts your anticipation. And I know we've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but that's something that I feel recreational players need to work on, as looking outside themselves, seeing the court situation.
These are all skills. These are all skills that you learn playing matches, don't you? It's very difficult. I mean, you could do that in training, but again, when you're on the training court, you're probably focusing on yourself and what you're trying to do. But those are all skills that you really only learn from competing.
Yeah, and I think, it's specific practice. It's going out there and saying, right, today I'm going to work on this. I really want to get this right. And when you play a point and you make a wrong decision, it's like, right, why was that wrong? Oh, I thought they were going into this position, but actually they were going under the ball and they lobbed me. And it's breaking that down, instead of going, oh, I'm so annoyed and you know, kind of stamping their feet and getting all upset. It's like, no, like, you know, reset, give yourself 1 second to get upset, and then, you know, reset, and then be like, you know, why did I think that wasn't going to be a lob, or why did I get into that situation, and breaking that down, and, you know, slow the game down if you need to. I'm not saying, you know, show bad sportsmanship and stall, like, but just take, you know, an adequate amount of time when you're changing points. You know, 10 seconds is you know, enough.
Yeah. So we got some questions from our community this week.
Yep.
Just to say that we are in a bit of a different location, aren't we, this week?
Yeah, we definitely are. It's not the Avicii Arena. A bit more homely.
We can always green screen it in somewhere.
Yeah, we could.
Okay, so the first question, this is around transitioning from tennis to paddle. So since shifting from tennis to paddle last year, I've been watching all your videos and I'm starting to play what I call proper paddle. The partner I play with plays very fast paddle and is net rushing a lot. We end up losing a lot because we're both out of position in points. What can I do to help him change this?
I mean, I would give that question back to you, really. You've come from a higher level of tennis. You've, you know, made that transition. What would you recommend?
Well, first, I think this is a really common problem, isn't it, for a lot of players?
We get this all the time.
Yeah. And particularly for players that have started playing more paddle and they're maybe playing with beginners who are new to paddle, and there's this kind of mismatch of awareness, really, or understanding of how paddle is played. And yeah, this is something we get a lot. I think, particularly at the beginner level, I think there's an element of communication between partners. So if, you know, you're the person who has played more and your partner hasn't, almost teaching them how to play paddle and how the game is played. You know, we see this a lot with people come to paddle and they're not serve volleying, so they're serving and staying back, giving the advantage straight back to their opponents. And I think at the beginner level, having that communication with your partner to say, look, serve volley on both serves, we want to get to the net, we want to try and, you know, take up our position there and take advantage of serving. And I think, particularly at the beginner level, it's an element of communication. I think as you go up the level, I think the communication doesn't change too much, but I think it's probably done in a bit more of a, I don't want to say subtle way, but a bit more of a tactically.
Yeah, I think you've got to be really diplomatic when it comes to your communication at all levels. You know, and this is something that I often see at beginner recreation level is one player coaching the other, and you know that ends up, unless it's the player's coach, that always ends up being a huge frustration, because you know the player that's being coached feels like they're, you know, being told what to do and they can't just relax and enjoy the game, and the one who's doing the coaching will end up feeling like the player's not listening, and you know, and then it ends up being a frustration. And so I think there's a fine line between being, you know, too much of a coach on court and not saying anything, you know, and I think we talked earlier about focusing, you know, on the tactics and the game situation, and I feel like if we're playing together and I'm saying you need to go here, then you know, it's very commanding, and you immediately will be like, oh, you know, like you kind of withdraw a bit, don't you?
Go into your shell, you think,
oh. Exactly, and so, but if I were to say to you, on this ball, why don't we try and get a little bit closer to net after the lob, and you bring in a tactical element, and you know, you kind of say that in a nice and, you know, comfortable, positive environment. It's different, and I think that's the same at the beginner level, and I think that's the same at any level, at our level. Like, you know, if we're playing together and I feel like you're rushing the net too much, I'll say, right, why don't we try doing this and this, and you'll be like, okay, and maybe with you're my brother, it's a bit different. I might come out and say, look, you know, we're just charging, we're doing
be a bit
this.
Blunter with me, wouldn't
you?
I'd
be a bit blunter with you, but I would often say we. You know, even though it's maybe you who's doing it, I'd say, look, we're doing this, you know, as a team, and this is really important. We've actually had students who've played with their husband or wife, and it's, you know, that diplomacy on court when things get heated and it's competitive and you want to win it's important, you know, and you've got to practice it. So I think that's what I would do if I was playing with someone that, you know, was making the wrong paddle moves. I would probably, you know, try and explain to them and say, why don't we try doing this on the court, or do that. And, then it's just a question of, trying to work with them to make them a better player so you are better as a team.
I think particularly with the net rushing element, what seems to work a lot is when you talked about how you would communicate with your partner, a lot of the time, take your time, slow down, let's be patient, let's work the point a bit more. I think that helps a lot if you have a partner that's always net rushing. That element of let's slow down, let's play the lob, as opposed to saying don't net rush, but like you said, almost think about it from a tactical perspective. And I think a lot of the times emphasising that let's be patient, let's slow down, I think seems to help a lot of people stop net rushing, because you can't slow it down and be patient and still feel like you've got to run to the net.
Yeah, definitely. And and this is where if it was a training game, for example, might put something in to say we're not allowed to come to net until our ball has cleared our opponents, and then we can move up. And that kind of stops that half volleying and rushing the net and doing playing that style of game. But yeah, absolutely, like getting them to bring that into the game in a diplomatic way is important.
I like the word diplomatic.
Yeah, I'm using that several times.
So we've got time for one more question.
Yep, shoot.
My partner slices every shot from the back on both forehand and backhand. She says they're effective because the ball stays low, but she also makes a lot of mistakes. Should she just practice this technique more, which will help her miss less, or should she consider changing her technique?
That's a good question, and it can often be difficult to say if we haven't seen them play. And as soon as you say someone who's doing a lot of slice from the back, I immediately think of like a traditional grass court tennis player that's come, and like a Steffi Graf that is out there and has an amazing slice. But this is one of those things we talked about earlier of preparing you for your future game and your future self. If you want to be a better paddle player, you will need to learn to hit flat. So it may be effective at this level, hitting slice. But as you go up a level, if you watch the World Padel Tour, there's a reason that everyone is not hitting slice from the back of the court. The margin for error it's just too risky. So I would say the first thing I would do would be to almost change the intention of the shot, change what you want to do with it, and then you could look at technique. If they come from a strong tennis background, they might be quite comfortable changing to hit a little bit flatter or do that. So. But this goes back to changing little things for future improvement, I think.
Yeah, and understanding, like you said, the tactical elements. Why would you slice? Why would you not slice, or why would you slice? When to do that? And I think the more you understand what you're trying to do on the court, I think, like you said, it would then help you then decide, okay, actually, I'm not going to slice every ball because it's not the most effective shot here, as opposed to just the ball's coming and I'm just going to slice everything.
Yeah. I mean, it comes to like risk versus reward, right? And at certain levels, it's less risky and worth the reward, and as you go up, it's not. So you have to change that.
Cool. Well, Sandy, good luck.
Absolute
later
pleasure.
This week.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but I mean, looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's get GB through.
Yeah,
slightly biased, but
to Dubai, where the World Champs is going to be held. So thank you, Tom. A pleasure.
Cheers.
And don't forget to subscribe and follow the podcast. And any questions, pop them down in the description down below, and we'll see you on the next one.